Now we're ready to build our fidget spinner inside of SketchUp. Before we do, let's take a look at what makes one work. Essentially, it has a bearing in the middle, and then oftentimes you'll see additional bearings around the outside edges for weight, to give it weight so it spins better and more evenly. Notice they're also all evenly distributed in a thing called rotational symmetry, where one end looks exactly like the other. Many that you see have 3, but that's not the only way of doing things. It could be a solid ring around the outside. It could be that you have 6 or 2 weights, and they don't necessarily have to be weighted with more bearings. You could be weighted with anything. It could be these little steel beads that are used to weight it. Really, it's up to your own design choice. And again, the most popular one that's sold normally has 3, but you're not limited to that because this is your fidget spinner. You can build it how you want to. But we do need to build it around a bearing. And so I looked up a bearing, and it looks like they are 22 millimeters across, 7 millimeters tall, and the hole in the middle is 8 millimeters. Now that part's not as important. What is important is how wide this is, because when you're building yours, you want to make sure that the frame for it has a hole that's exactly the right dimension, because if it's too big, the bearing will fall right out. If it's too small, you won't be able to get it into the frame in the first place. So 22 millimeters across is a standard bearing usually used on skateboards, and 7 millimeters tall or thick is a good dimension for that. All right, so now let's go over here and look at how to do that in Google SketchUp. Since the bearing is round, we're going to take a look at using a tool underneath the Shapes tool. I'm going to click here and choose Circle. Since I'm in the top view, I'm going to line up the center of the circle right here in the center of the X and the red and green axes. And if I start to click and drag, it starts to draw a circle. Well, it's telling me the exact radius of that. A radius is the distance from the center to the outside edge. We found the measurement from one side to the other was 22 millimeters. So one side to the middle is only half of that. So if I take 22 millimeters, which is the total distance across, and divide it by 2, I get 11. So down here, instead of having this weird number, I'm going to type the number 11 and press enter on the keyboard. Now I have one that has an exact 11 millimeter radius or a 22 millimeter diameter. Let me use this zoom extents to get to it faster. All right, so that is the exact shape and size of the bearing that we're going to be using. So this is where we're going to put the bearing in the middle if we printed this out. Now we need some plastic around the outside to help hold it in place, because again, this is going to get cut out, but it has to be the exact right dimension to hold the bearing so it doesn't fall out and will actually become part of our spinner. So let me go ahead and drag another circle on the outside. Now this one I can either just make it how I want to, or I can give it another exact dimension. Again, I'm going to type in 15, and it's down here. That's for the radius, the distance from the center to the outside edge. Enter. Now I have this one that has the outside edge. It's going to hold it, and I need right here, I'm going to cut a hole out by using that select and delete I told you about earlier. So I select the middle of the shape and delete it. And now I have a place that's perfect for that 22 millimeter bearing with a ring of plastic to hold it in place. Let's scroll out a little more. Now we can start building using the rest of the tools.